Yesterday marked 7 years ago that my mom, who was only 49 years old, passed away after a 3-year battle
Caleb,
with colon cancer. She left behind
Sorry
my
about that.
dad
I
and
should
6
have.
of
It
us
was my
kids.
job.
At the time, my youngest sister was only 6 years old, so pretty much her only memories of my mom was her being sick with cancer. And I'm sure many of you out there could tell similar stories, either that have happened to you or people that you know. And it's often those stories that get us started on a health journey. But that journey can get very confusing, especially in today's world with all of the health information on social media and everywhere around us, it seems. So I am just curious, how many of you started on your journey to health and wellness because of a health crisis in your family or for you yourself? It's very common, and I wish it didn't have to be that way, but so often it is, and it was for myself as well. By the time my mom had cancer, we had already been in our health journey for a few years, but there was another crisis that I went through that I'll talk about a little later. So I have another question for you, and it's just a question, no shame here. How many of you are on or have been on what may be called one of the popular diets out there right now, like paleo, keto, carnivore, vegan, raw, intermittent fasting, any of those? How many have been on one of those? There are so many voices out there, and they're all telling us something different. There's the carnivores versus the vegans. There's the intermittent fasters versus the bodybuilders that eat every couple hours. There's one group that's telling you that milk is only for baby cows, and then there's the other group that's telling you that you should go on raw milk cleanses. It seems that everywhere you turn, someone is telling you something different. One more question. How many of you are on social media? No shame here either, that's our job. So if you are on social media, you'll know that it is a dumpster fire for health advice. And who are these crazy people anyway that are giving health advice on the internet, right? Isn't it nuts what we have to go through to find out what it means to be healthy? So if you're in the midst of a health crisis, or if you're finding health advice confusing, we have something to share with you today. We're not doctors, we're not going to share an ABC formula, but we're going to share our story of where we came from, what we've gone through, what we've learned, and hopefully along the way you'll see that there's hope.
Hi everybody, my name is Michelle, as they mentioned. It's really good to be here. I'm just going to hop right into my healing journey. So what started me on my quest for health was pretty simple. It was acne. And I had acne as a teenager and it was annoying. But after I got married, I broke out with severe cystic acne all over my face, back, and chest. I had other symptoms as well now when I look back, but the acne was really what motivated me to find answers. It was so painful that it hurt to put my face down on the pillow at night, but not only was it painful, it also just really wore away at my self-esteem. We didn't have any money, so I didn't get any professional help, but I dove headlong into the world of natural medicine and clean food. So we quickly discovered that real food was very expensive, did not fit into our budget. So raw milk, grass-fed meat, organic produce, it just was too expensive for us. So we started coming up with ways to produce our own food. I grew up gardening. I knew how to garden. Codi did not. We put in some raised beds. We were living in a basement apartment at that time, but we got permission to put in some raised beds. And we also got some Banty hens that laid peanut M&Ms for us. And I continued to learn about herbalism. I tried liver cleanses. I tried all kinds of different diets. So one of them, it included eating copious amounts of beans. It didn't end well. I don't recommend it. But honestly, nothing really did the trick for me. So eventually I started having babies. And when I was pregnant, my skin was perfectly clear. And then I would have the baby and the acne would slowly start coming back. But not only did the acne come back, I also started having other symptoms as well. So I had extreme fatigue. I had purple bags under my eyes. I had weight loss. I was just skin and bones. I had high blood sugar, low blood pressure. I had migraines, very painful cycles. I had depression, suicidal thoughts, dizzy spells. And our marriage was broken as well at that point, and I was just barely hanging on. By this time, we had bought some land, and we were building up a homestead and already actually producing quite a bit of our own food to feed our family, which was lots of hard work, and that was definitely adding to the mental load and the overwhelm and health issues that I was having. So after I had my third baby, I just did not recover from the pregnancy. Any kind of activity or exercise just left me drained for days, and it was all I could do to just take care of my babies. So at that time, I had a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn, and I remember laying on the couch one day, and I just told Cody, I was like, I don't care what we have to do. I don't care if we have to quit homesteading. I don't care if we have to go in debt. I can't do this anymore. Whatever it takes, I'm done. And thankfully, he took me seriously, and so I started doing phone consultations with a nutritionist, and I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, liver issues, kidney issues, hormonal imbalances, the whole gamut. And I was prescribed a boatload of supplements, and when I say boatload, I mean boatload. It filled my entire hand. It was over 100 pills a day, and it cost thousands of dollars a month, and it was very overwhelming for me at the time, but it felt like hope. I felt better almost immediately. I think my body was just so depleted that just any kind of nutrition helped instantly. But after 4 years of taking all of these supplements, I had to face up to the fact that I was not getting better. I wasn't improving anymore. It was like I hit a wall. Not only was I not improving, but it felt like I was going backwards. It was like the supplements were a Band-Aid for me, but they weren't actually taking care of that root problem. It was a very hard thing to face up to because of all the time and money that we dumped into this. I dealt with so much confusion over this time because of all the conflicting health information out there. I wasn't even on social media yet at that point, and it was already confusing. I was eating clean, but I was still sick. There were so many conflicting voices out there. Cut this out of your diet, cut that out of your diet, quit eating sugar, eat stevia instead. And then, a month later I find out that, stevia is causing infertility and it's so bad for you. And meat and dairy are inflammatory. And I was told that the garden veggies that I was growing in my garden were trying to kill me. It was just so confusing. And every time I put something in my mouth, I questioned it, like, is this hurting me or is this helping me? And there was nothing even that we grew on our land that all the experts could agree on was beneficial for me. I felt alone. I felt misunderstood. I felt like I was difficult, like I was the exception to every rule, and I was frankly just tired of being the weirdo who was working my butt off in the garden when I could just be going to Costco and buying organic food.
When I was a kid, my dad had a can of Mountain Dew and a Star Crunch cookie at every single break at his work. Surprise, surprise, he did come up with a health crisis of his own, which turned him into a health nut. And some of my earliest memories were of getting the little sesame seed candies for dessert, and then my dad's skin actually turning orange from drinking so much carrot juice. He eventually did back off a little bit, but from that point forward, he did have a bent towards healthy eating. But that didn't really trickle down into the rest of our family. When I was a teenager, my favorite drink was also Mountain Dew. We didn't have it at home, but I remember one time I was at a friend's house and I had a whole bunch of pizza and Mountain Dew. I went home that night, was going to sleep, and I got heartburn worse than I'd ever gotten in my life. I had struggled with it before, but I got it so bad, literally thought I was going to die. I was yelling in pain, and I vowed to never drink Mountain Dew again. But I didn't make the connection between that and the other parts of my diet as well. And to show you what kind of confusion I was dealing with, sometime after I had left home, I had been eating sugary cereals and Pop-Tarts every morning for breakfast because that's what culture told me was a breakfast food and it tasted good. Well, I was wanting to save some money and I was looking for something cheaper, and I thought I would start eating eggs for breakfast. And just the cheap eggs, obviously. And I actually called my dad and I asked him if he thought it would be healthy for me to only be eating eggs every single morning for breakfast, like I was going to overdose on eggs or something. I inherited my mom's sweet tooth and also her bad teeth genetics. I had dealt with cavities and stuff my whole life, but it really started hitting harder after Michelle and I were married, and all of a sudden we were living paycheck to paycheck, And then I was also having to spend thousands of dollars to try to fix my teeth. I had been dealing with other stuff too. I was tired all the time. I would come home from work in the evening and I would just sleep for the entire evening. And I was young enough to be able to do life on young energy alone, but it was obvious I was headed in the wrong direction. Enter Michelle. Michelle was a little ahead of me in our health journey, and she decided to try to help me. Bless her heart. She would convince me to go on these cleanses, like parasite cleanses and liver cleanses. She got me to go on this, Candida cleanse one time. And just for the record, this is in the past. I have forgiven her for it. But this was before she knew how to cook good, healthy food. And some of it's a blur, but what I can remember is flax bread and flax pancakes that almost made me throw up. Right now, the thought of it is almost enough to make me throw up. There was also something about this cleanse that made me have to pee all the time. It's really weird. But when I had to go, I had to go. And I was a service tech for a window company, and I would drive around to these fancy houses and fix their windows. And one day I was on my way to a house, and the urge came, and I didn't know what to do. But I did know that the homeowners weren't home. So when I drove into their nice paved driveway, like a madman, I backed up to some bushes, flung open the back doors of the van for some extra cover, and did my business right there. If they caught me on security camera, I never found it out, thankfully. But those cleanses and little hacks I tried to do for my health were just little Band-Aids on a bigger problem, and I was trying to treat symptoms and not connecting the dots to the root causes. While this was going on, a friend gave me a book called Cure Tooth Decay, and in it the author talked about Weston Price, raw milk, organ meats, and stuff like that, and basically healing your teeth with the right diet. That was the light bulb moment for me, and it was my tipping point. And I'm an all-or-nothing kind of guy, so when I figured out that I needed to change my diet, I did. And it was a pretty long process of figuring out what was what, cutting out certain ingredients and stuff, but I stuck with it, and my health did start changing with my diet change. But like Michelle mentioned a little bit ago, we were under a lot of stress, and we had a lot going on. We built our own house because we wanted to start homesteading. We didn't have hardly any money. And I did most of the work myself while I was holding down a full-time job and trying to be a good husband and father. And then I was also dumb enough to start trying to do the homestead stuff while I was still building the house. Needless to say, that didn't work out so well. I got super skinny, gaunt, sickly, was not feeling well, and our marriage was very much suffering. And then we went straight from building our house into full-on homesteading and doing farmers markets to try to build a business to build up the life that we wanted to live while I was still working the full-time job. So at this point, by then, we're eating all the healthy foods, but we weren't living a healthy life. And it took us a while, but finally we did learn that eating the healthy food was only half of the story.
So a huge turning point in my life was when I decided to confide in somebody about how awful I was feeling, about how awful I felt my life was. I'm still blown away at how long it took me to come to the end of myself and just admit that I needed help and that I had a problem. So one of the first things that we did was we got help for our marriage. We sank quite a bit of money into counseling and therapy, and honestly, I don't regret any of it. Every penny was worth it. I noticed improvement in my health almost immediately after I started repairing broken relationships. And over time, I really started connecting the dots and just realizing that my spiritual and my emotional distress were playing heavily into my physical issues. I craved stability and peace and simplicity, and this craving for simplicity is what really led me into what I call a season of purging. This time of purging was incredibly painful, but it was also the most freeing thing that I have ever experienced. We quit farmers market, which felt like a dream that had died. We poured everything we had into this dream. We really wanted to grow our own food and then have that pay, and grow food for other people and have that pay for Codi to come home from work. We'd poured everything we had into that dream, and then poof, it was gone, and it felt like we barely had anything to show for it. We also sold our egg business that we had spent years building up. We were selling eggs to restaurants and stuff. This is the business we hoped to hand down to our son. We started saying no to good things that made us too busy. I got rid of a third of our stuff. I'm not joking. I was like a mad woman. Cody thought I was insane. I stuffed books, toys, kitchen gadgets, towels, sheets, anything. I stuffed them into trash bags and I just sent them to Goodwill. I just needed to create space to take care of myself and to just be present with life. So many of the decisions that we made over that time were incredibly heartbreaking, and it felt like we were losing a part of ourselves. But the relief that followed is something that I cannot explain to you in words. That feeling of intense relief and groundedness is actually the fuel that helped us. It helped us to it was behind what helped us to have the It was the groundedness behind why we chose to start creating content about homesteading without overwhelm. Over this time of purging, I felt the nudge to quit my nutritionist, and I was terrified. I felt like those pills were my lifeline. But I was also starting to resent them. So I found a naturopath instead who lived near me. I just needed a fresh perspective. And she looked at my big box of pills, and I thought she was going to fall on the floor and faint. I left her office with only 3 bottles of pills, but a whole lot of hope. So I went from taking around 60 pills a day to only 8, and I felt better than I had in 10 years. It only got better from there. I started learning about the nervous system and how my body is not going to digest food well if I am in fight or flight. If a bear is chasing me, my body is not going to be thinking about digesting food. It's going to be thinking about getting me to safety. And so I started realizing that I'm not going to be digesting food and using that amazing food that we're growing. I'm not going to be using it well if I don't feel safe in my body. It still wasn't a walk in the park from there. There was still a lot of conflicting info that I needed to sort through. Our marriage was better, my stress levels were better, but my health was still pretty far from perfect. So through this time, I found a podcast by Amanda Montalvo, and she talks about how to eat for metabolic health. And I just decided that for a while I'm going to just shut out all the other noise, and I'm just going to follow her advice for a while. It was very practical, it wasn't radical, it wasn't extreme, and it also wasn't cutting out any major food groups, which is something that I really did not want to do. Her approach felt like something that would be sustainable for us living off the land, growing our own food, and she talked a lot about lifestyle and nervous system and not just about food. So not everything that she recommended worked for me, but here are just some of the practical things that really moved the needle for me. So first of all, I realized that I was massively under-eating. I did a quiz. This quiz is still on the website Fallon's Table. It's just a really simple, quick quiz that gave me an idea of how much I should be eating for optimal hormone health. So I started eating a large breakfast. I, to this day, eat a quarter-pound hamburger for breakfast every single morning. As soon as I can after waking, no caffeine before food. I started focusing on minerals in the form of electrolyte drinks, beef liver, trace minerals in my water. I made sure that I was getting bare feet on the ground every single day if possible. Sunlight in bare eyes, not with contact lenses, not with glasses, sunlight in bare eyes. It makes the absolute world of a difference. The other day, Cody looked at me and he was like, "You need to get out and get some sun in your eyes." It makes the biggest difference. I started exercising again because I had energy and I had more reserve. And I rested religiously for 2 hours every single afternoon while my kids napped and had their quiet time, and I still do that to this day. I don't have to sleep anymore because I'm not exhausted, but it's just a time, I look forward to it every single afternoon. To this day, I still have areas in my health that I need to be proactive in. I'm still on my health journey, but I feel good. And I've learned to read my body's signals and react accordingly, and I know my limitations, and I can tell when it's time to make a change or set up a boundary.
So Michelle covered a lot of the big things that we went through that really started making a difference for us. And I didn't go through quite as much of the drastic diet and supplement roller coaster things she did, but for me, the place where I started seeing the biggest changes in my health was when I combined healthy eating with exercise. I did running, weightlifting, stuff that I still do, and then also the mental changes that came through therapy and meditation. So I was also going to a naturopath for a while, and she did put me on a few supplements, but she really pushed me to take care of my health in a more holistic way, and I will forever be thankful for that. I did start exercising and also taking some much needed breaks, some long overdue breaks, and I saw the biggest improvements in my overall health. So I have come to embrace the fact that you cannot fix all of your issues by healthy eating alone. Just as an example, you cannot be a depressed couch potato and then eat kale chips and beef liver and expect to be a healthy person. It just does not work that way. And I think that everybody knows that deep down inside. Everybody knows that health and wellness is more than just switching to buying organic food. But we tend to push that thought aside because we want an easier fix. It's a whole lot easier to start buying organic food or even growing it yourself than just totally rearranging the way that you live your life. There's also another side to the healthy eating thing that I think is so true and that we found out for ourselves, is that one thing that I've noticed in myself and in others is that often people who are super crunchy when it comes to their eating, always worried about what they're doing, it sometimes seems like they can never quite get ahead. They're always still dealing with a lot of those health struggles. And I truly believe when you focus so much on doing just the right thing, having the perfect diet, it can take you down a path of anxiety. Always thinking that if you eat some bad ingredients, you're going to get sick. Always worried about what your kids are eating. And speaking from experience, also we can get judgmental towards others who are not eating the way that we think we should. Something that I've done way too often. That anxiety, worry, and stress is affecting your brain, your hormones, your body in very negative ways. So add that on top of your already stressful life that most of us have, and sometimes you could even be worse off than you were before. But I am not saying that healthy eating isn't important. Eating chemical-free, nutrient-dense food in the right proportions is very, very important. That's why we try to grow 75% of the food that we eat as a family on our homestead. It's just not the whole story. So we came into homesteading hoping that the healthy food would heal us, but it almost destroyed us because of how we went about it. But once we were able to see the bigger picture, we started trying to figure out ways to make the homestead actually be that healing place for us. So we learned to be more efficient in the garden and with the animals so that we're not always running ourselves ragged to try to keep up with everything. Our homestead is a place of work, but it should also be a place of peace. It's a place where we can enjoy the sunshine, what little sunshine there is in Ohio, and where we can walk barefoot through the gardens. We're still bombarded with all that health information, though. We've got friends and family from carnivore to vegan to everything in between. On our social media posts, we get hundreds of comments with different health advice from all angles. I'm part of Facebook groups for cows and bees and stuff, and anytime somebody asks a question on there, there's all kinds of advice from all different angles. So what do we do with that? Something that we always come back to is common sense, or what I call uncommon sense now. We take a step back and we ask ourselves how much sense something makes. So, as a little bit of a disclaimer, this is going to look different for everybody, and that's okay. So, there's literally science to back up any conclusion, what you want to come to. Any diet that anybody's been on, there's science to back it up. But does it make sense? So if you look at nature and the way it was created to work so beautifully together, how much sense does it make to work against that when you're trying to grow something? You look at nature and you see an ecosystem where all the plants and the animals are working together to create something beautiful and healthy, and then we want to grow food and we do a monocrop and we use sprays to control the pests and diseases. It doesn't make sense. I look at where God put man first on this earth in a garden, and then I had to ask myself, does it make sense that the vegetables are poisoning us? Does it make sense when we know that the food should come from the earth, then to eat food with ingredients in it that comes out of a lab? Sometimes all of the voices out there are really confusing, and there's so many of them, but sometimes you just have to go with what gives you peace. And I know that that can sound a little bit woo-woo or something, but I truly believe that God gave each one of us a sound mind, and He wants us to use it. And really leaning into that has helped us get through a lot of that confusion.
I have learned and continue learning so much in my journey to wellness, and here's just a few of the basic lessons that I have learned. First, in a world where anyone can say anything and be seen by thousands and even millions of people, I think it's imperative that we are responsible consumers of information. I don't think social media is the enemy. I think it's an amazing tool, but I think that it's crucial that we are grounded in our own beliefs before we go to social media. It's more critical now than ever that we're in touch with our own intuition and common sense. Otherwise, we're just going to be jumping on and off the roller coaster over and over again. So, for example, recently I shared a reel to my story that was questioning sunscreen. To be clear, it was not even my piece of content, it was somebody else's, and I was just showing it to my audience and saying, hey, what do you guys think about this? And I quickly found out that some people think that sunscreen will save you from skin cancer, and the other half of the population thinks that it causes skin cancer. And not gonna lie, I got kind of caught up in the vortex of this whole thing. My DMs were blowing up, people were leaving me these long paragraphs, people were unfollowing me, and I just thought I was gonna completely go up in smoke. After an hour, for my own sake, I deleted the post, I set down my phone, and I said, Michelle, what do you think about this issue? And so these are some of the things that went through my mind. First of all, everything nowadays is all about blocking UV light. So the windows in our houses, the windows in our cars, our sunglasses, regular glasses, contact lenses, sunscreen. Even women who work office jobs are being told that they should be wearing sunscreen. The sun is our very source of life here on this planet. Literally nothing would be alive if it was not for the sun. And so I had to ask myself the question, why are we demonizing the sun? Why am I trying to keep this out of every part of my life? And furthermore, my body has the capability of telling me when it's had enough. It's called a sunburn. And pain is a red flag that says too much. And I do realize this is a very nuanced, a very layered topic. But at some point, I had to shut out the noise and I had to make up my mind so that I could rest. So then and there, I just decided, okay, I'll wear sunscreen in a scenario where I would otherwise get a sunburn. And I'll eat good fats that support my skin. And outside of that, I'm just gonna enjoy the sun, guilt-free. And now when I see a controversial post on social media, I can just flip right on by it and it does not bother me. So anything that's trending, whether it is tallow for skincare, the carnivore diet, eating hunks of butter, eating your placenta, whatever it is, it will get picked apart, completely shredded by both sides, and you in your heart of hearts are going to have to decide what you believe, what is right for you. I had different doctors, all of whom I trusted and still trust, who said polar opposite things. And I realized at one point that I am capable, I am qualified to make decisions for the health of my own body, for the sake of my health. Which brings me to my next point, never ever give away your agency. I don't care how many licenses, I don't care how many degrees a person has, never give away your full agency to them. A mistake that I made over and over again was putting all of my faith and trust in one doctor. And then when that doctor would let me down, and they will because they're human, number one, and number two, every single person that comes into their office is a little bit different. So when that doctor would make a mistake, it just completely shook my world, and I questioned everything. I think healthcare professionals are amazing. I am currently working with a naturopath, and I love her. But if she prescribes something to me or gives me some kind of direction that I feel off about, I don't just swallow it and take it as gospel. I think about it, I pray about it, and then I follow the peace. And my faith, my intuition have saved me from so many fiascos. When we lay down our own intuition and blindly follow someone else's intuition, it will not end well. Last but not least, I'm learning to live in the tension of knowing that there are real risks and scary things all around us, but that I can only do so much, and then I have to lay it down, let it go, and live fearlessly for the sake of my health. My lifestyle doesn't have to be perfect for me to heal. I can't help it that the farmer next to us is spraying glyphosate on his field all the time. I can't single-handedly change the messed up food laws or take care of the cow farts that are ruining our atmosphere. Kidding, I promise, I'm kidding. But I can control what I spray on my land. I can control what I feed my kids. I can control how I choose to spend my time. I can control the kinds of foods that I buy at the grocery store. And if we all do our small bit, the world will become a better place. Thank you.
Just wanted to say real quick, thanks for having us. We did mention a little bit that we do grow a lot of our own food and stuff, and we go into that in lots of detail on our YouTube channel. And then if you want to see more of Michelle's like story, everyday life, and stuff like that, she's on Instagram all the time. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Good job.